Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Code and Cloud with Kaushik. So today we are going to discuss the concept of Docker Swarm. It's very essential concept in the world of Docker and Docker Swarm. So it has the connection or relationship between master and cluster node. Actually, what is the requirement of Docker Swarm? So if we are going to see these slides, so Docker Swarm, we can see it's a what is written. At first, we have to see in that concept. Docker Swarm is a clustering and scheduling tool for Docker containers. Or you can say Docker Swarm is a container orchestration tool running in the Docker application. So, primary requirement of Docker Swarm is that it will connect, it will manage the worker node. So, it has master and it has some worker or cluster node. So, in the manner or it's a tool which can schedule and clustering the Docker containers. So with the Swarm, the IT administrators and developers can establish and manage a cluster of Docker nodes as a single virtual system. And we can also say that it has been, it's a it's a container orchestration tool running in the Docker application. So what is container orchestration? What is the meaning? So if we see the definition of container orchestration, so in the real world, we are not going to deal only with the one containers. There are multiple containers. It can be, and we are dealing mainly in that microservices. There are many services, right? So each services are individually connected inside the containers. Like we have create one web application. So the front end is that React, Angular, Vue.js, or backend can be Node.js, PHP, Python. In the Node.js, if we are also taking the backend, and we can create some microservices. So different components. So it's loosely coupled, not tightly coupled, right? So we have to create that architecture in that way. So individual containers are there. So we have to manage the process of organizing multiple containers in this manner. We can say it's a container orchestration tool. Container orchestration. So who manages all the containers? Because in a real world application, there are multiple containers. So we have to manage these all containers, right? So we can manage the containers with the help of Docker Swarm. And so we also can see that it has been configured to join together in a cluster. So it has master node, it has cluster node. Let's see the architecture. So you can see the architecture diagram of Docker Swarm. So first we have the Docker client, means we have to communicate with the Docker client first, right? And this communication goes inside the Swarm manager. Swarm manager means it's a master node. And from the master node, it has been executed to Docker worker node level. So in that architecture, we can see we have three nodes, node 1, node 2, and node 3. All the communication from the user level, right? I am writing some comment. We are writing some comments. So this Docker client initially communicate with that Swarm manager, means master node. It has not been going to communicate. There are thousands of nodes, the cluster nodes, right? Or worker node. The worker node has been managed by the help of Docker Swarm manager. Like in the real world scenario, if you can see, in in any office or any organization, so there are project manager or there is skill manager is there, right? So in that project manager, they have manages the project as well as they have manages that other like resources, other things, right? So we have just communicated with the project manager, and project manager execute all the necessary project level things, and the communication with that resources, how they are deal with inside the projects. So this has been communicated by the project managers. The same thing, the deal is first deal we are going to make with that master node, that is swarm manager. So this swarm manager, they have many, they have created, there may many other components also be there in the swarm, like load balancer, services. So I'll come in the latter part. The first one to initialize the architecture level. So every Docker master node, it has been communicated with the node 1, node 2, and node 3. There are thousands of nodes should be there in the real world scenario. And you can see that one Docker process has been executed, right? So in the both system, Docker should be there. So Docker daemon has been executed in the node, all the nodes, and manager only communicate and execute the task. It has been configured that we have these tasks, these 7 or 8 tasks, like we have to create the microservice, we have to create the architecture, we have to create all the things, and then this task has been executed inside the Docker swarm by the by the cluster manager. So this is the typical architecture of Docker swarm. I hope you all can understood. Now we can see what is the components of Docker swarm. We can see the manager node, or that is called leader node also, or it's a master node. So this is the one node, and they are the main nodes that control the cluster, and they are responsible for managing and planning and scheduling of containers. Means we have to manage, because thousands of machines are there in the real world, right? We can manage. We can manage the containers. We can manage that all the containers. We have to plan also how we can manage and what is the execution level. We can also scheduling, means all the containers. So they also store information about the containers in the cluster and coordinate communication between nodes. So that is why it is called the leader node. So it's one in any scenario you can execute that one leader is required, right? And leader shows the path, and then in the same path the resources, the other members, they are follow this path. Same way, one manager node is there, and rest of the thing is worker node. Worker node, what? This is the node that run the containers in the cluster. They are responsible for running containers and processing user requests. Whatever the request has been executed, that has been given by the swarm manager or master node, it has been only executed in that level. So worker node is responsible for running containers. So on one other component is swarm mode. So this is the Docker swarm mode that is activated on the manager node. So manager node communicate with the worker node. The hands-on part, I will show how it can be communicated and what is the how the master node can connect it with the worker node. But as of now, we can see that swarm mode is the activity of the manager node and enables communication and coordination between the nodes in the cluster. So as a real world scenario, they have given some token, right? This token has been given to the worker node and then has been established, right? Master node can understand this is my some worker nodes and I have to execute this task with them. So this is the swarm mode, and we have given the services, right? So they are set of containers that run on the cluster and provide a specific application or service. So I told that we have created multiple containers. We have created the replica set of the containers, like we have Ubuntu image, right? From that Ubuntu image, we are going to create containers. But I want to create 4 replica set of the containers. How I can going to create? So that time we require services. So we can say services are defined by a configuration file like YML file or JSON file. It's a configuration file and deployed in the Docker Swarm cluster, and then it has been executed. So we can see in the architecture also Docker Swarm manager, there are the services also be there, and these services has been executed in the cluster nodes. So are the Docker daemon nodes, right? This is the cluster node or worker node, we can say. And then overlay network. So one concept that I will going to discuss in the future session, the network, how the communication between multiple containers. Basically, any containers when it has been established, then one by default network has been created, that is called bridge network, and we have also created the overlay network. So we can say it's a virtual network that allows containers to communicate with each other. So by default, one network has been created. Otherwise, we can also create that virtual network or overlay network. And how it has been communicated with the help of networking. And all the network level that allows containers to communicate with each other and with the outside world. So cluster nodes are connected to an overlay network to enable communication between containers running on different nodes. So in the outside world, how we can going to connect it with that other containers, right? So that's connected to an overlay network to enable communication between containers running on different nodes. And that is another component, that is load balancing. We can say that there are thousands of containers we have to manage is that, and we have to integrate the load balancing so to distribute request among the containers of a service. So that request we have been passed to the cluster node, from the master node to cluster node, and we have to manage is that all the containers. That's why in the favor of services, we are going to integrate load balancing. The manager nodes schedule and distribute the request to corresponding worker nodes, and then it has been highly available, and it has been ensured that traffic is evenly distributed among the cluster. So that traffic, whatever is the coming from the outside world, that has been distributed in the cluster also, right? Eventually distributed. So that is the concept of load balancing. Now we can say that what is the difference between Docker and Docker? So that has been come into the mind. So we have differentiated 5 things like functions. At the function level, we can say Docker is a platform of individual containers. So it has a platform of individual containers, where Docker Swarm is a orchestration tool. So we have other orchestration tool also, that is Kubernetes, but Docker has also its own orchestration tool, that is Docker Swarm. So as a scalability level, we can say that we have to allow the horizontal scalability across multiple nodes. So we can allow automatic scaling of containers. That is the horizontal scalability. We can add thousands of containers as per our business needs. So we can scale in and scale out this concept, and we can scale in and scale out the containers. So horizontal scalability across multiple hosts. That is the main that is in this features is enabled in the Docker Swarm, but it does not have the native scalable capabilities. Vertical scalability on a single host. Docker has a vertical scalability, not that horizontal scalability, but Docker Swarm is a horizontal scalability. We can connect in thousand of nodes. We can create multiple nodes. We have to establish multiple nodes and distribute the load with the help of load balancing. And this the task, schedulers, planning, execution level, that has been eventually distributed among the containers. So horizontal scale, we can scale in and we can scale out the containers as per our business needs. And high availability, so Docker Swarm ensures the high availability because they have multi-node distribution. There are multiple nodes are there, so it can provide the high availability. But Docker that does not have the native high available capabilities on multiple nodes. It's a only it has not any native high availability capabilities, but Docker Swarm has high available through multiple node distribution. So Docker Swarm basically helps to manage the worker nodes. So that is the reason it has the high availability power. But Docker itself Docker Swarm is a tool, and Docker is a platform of individual containers, right? So that is the reason it does not have any native high availability capabilities on multiple hosts. but that's the reason it has taken the Docker Swarm as a tool, and comments that Docker comments to build and run individual containers. We can see we already shown that in the previous sessions that how to we can build the images, how can run the containers. So Docker comments to build and run individual containers, but Docker Swarm comments for managing and orchestration containers in the cluster. So additionally, Docker Swarm comments for managing and orchestration containers in the cluster. So, so as a whole, as a summary, we can say, so that is the main difference between Docker and Docker Swarm. So we have 5 or 6 points I've taken, like functions, scalability, high availability, and comments. And in the main concept as a summary, you can say that Docker Swarm Docker Swarm is a container orchestration tool. It has master node or leader node and thousands of worker nodes. Leader node only communicates between the worker nodes. How they can communicate? Through the services. How they can create the request, like load balancing, how they can create the request with the services. So initially as a user, the Docker client only communicate with the manager node or master node. And then these communications would be executed via services with the worker node. So worker node only execute. That is the reason they have high available. So it is the concept. I hope you can understand that what is the Docker Swarm. And in the next video, we are going to create one hands-on how we can communicate between master node and the cluster node. So if you have any questions or any doubts, you can definitely ask me via in that comment box. And also please subscribe my channel. And thank you for attending the session. Thank you very much.